Hello, how are you guys doing? Today I'm going to talk about how I opened my construction company and how I went from zero to about 400,000 in a few years. Um, uh, there's 5 things I want to talk to you guys about before you guys start your company, and this could be any service-based industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be construction. Mine was construction. I had never worked in the construction industry before, so it was a new thing for me. I knew a little bit of business from past businesses that I had opened, but I'd never been in the construction industry. So that leads to number one, which is know your business. And when I mean know your business, you have to know your business A to Z. Okay, and when you're starting a new business, it's very difficult to know the business. You don't even know what you don't know. So the number one thing is you have to work for another construction company, and you have to. I did it for a year, and I learned the ins and outs of the business. I learned how the leads um, happen, how the contracts are signed, how the work begins, how the process of collecting payments. I asked a lot of questions. Uh, you know, some, you know, uh, some people don't feel a little bit uneasy when you're asking, a lot of financial questions. So, be tactful about it. But I learned how the business was structured, how the banking and everything happened in the business. And I also learned, you know, the labor part of the business, how to actually do the job. You don't necessarily, when you're opening a construction company, you don't necessarily have to be the one doing the work, but you have to exactly know what good looks like, what bad looks like. You have to know how well done job is supposed to look like. Also, a little bit of experience resolving issues with clients. Clients that didn't like the job and they want their money back and stuff like that. So I worked for a year in this company. And once I learned, what I thought was good enough to where I could run my own company, I decided to open my own company. Now, when you're first starting out, I wouldn't recommend anybody to go out there and get a corporation, C Corp, S Corp, LLC. I wouldn't recommend you doing that until you have money coming in. Don't spend all that money and trademark and all this stuff when you haven't even made any money, right? So the second, so basically that leads to the second part, and that's marketing your business. You have to be on Google. That's the most important thing. Um, right now, that's where you get your business. When you're looking for a carpet cleaning company, what do? You look on Google. Concrete company, which is what I do. You look at Google, remodeling, anything, it's all on Google. And so that's the number one thing you have to do. Open your Google account. It's very easy. You can figure it out. And then when you're first starting out, obviously make cards. You're not going to get a lot of business from those cards. Um, you know, uh, Not enough to where it would uh, where you'd survive, right? Um, so what you would have to do, what I did was I went to Angie's List. Now Angie's List is a lot of people love it and hate it. It's a little bit tricky when I did it because you would get leads, you would get all these leads, and they would get they would call. No, you would get the leads on the app, and then you'd have to call them right away. If you didn't call them within 72 hours or something like that, you lost the leads and you still had to pay. So I think when I was paying about $70, depending on the size of the job, for every lead. And then you're competing. They don't just send those leads to you. They're sending about 2 or 3 other contractors. So it's, they're sending the same lead to about 4 of you guys, and you have to kind of compete to get the leads. So it's, that first, using Angie leads at first, it's a little bit hard. just because you have to hustle and you have to spend money. And if there's another contractor on Angie's list who is really cheap, and then he's he might steal all your jobs, but it's just for me it was necessary because nobody knew who I was. I didn't know anybody, so I had to start out on Angie's list. And I got a few jobs on Angie's list, and there is the important spot. Once you get a few jobs on Angie's list, the name of your business, and it doesn't have to be registered. It's just the name, Bob's Painting or Bob's Remodeling, whatever. They rate you on Angie's list. But then also, when the job's done, you ask them to rate you on Google. And you want to and if you did a good job, you actually want to ask them for a rating. That way they can give you 5 stars, and that helps your CEO, so that when people search for your company, you're one of the top ones. So that's kind of how I started. That's how I started my SEO SEO. Which stands for Search Engine Optimization, and that just means when somebody calls your business, you don't want to be on the 6th page. You're never going to get called, right? You want to be on the 1st page. And the way you get on the 1st page is, your business is listed on Angie's list. Your business is listed on somewhere else. And in all these different listings, Google sees that, and it's an algorithm, right? But also your 5 stars and comments and reviews, that helps out a lot. So that's number 2. Number 3, you gotta focus on quality. And when you're first starting out, you gotta always focus on quality. But when you're starting out, this is what makes or breaks you. When I first started out, there was jobs that I messed up, but I fixed them before the client knew. Or if there's something we did wrong, we made sure that we made it almost perfect. Perfection doesn't exist, but you got to get damn near close to it. And this is how you create a reputation. There was times where, I lost money on a lot of the jobs that I did. But I chose to lose money to make sure that job was done perfect. It's part of the business, when you're first starting out. And obviously, when you're first starting to get some jobs, you don't have experience in it, or it's your first time doing this kind of job. And so a lot of contractors that start, they mess it up, but they don't want to lose money. So they just say, hey, that's the best I can do. Take it or leave it. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure your reputation is everything. Also, when I first started out, I started working with a lot of GCs, a lot of, other real estate companies, and I started working with a lot of real estate guys, real estate investors. Now, what you have to know about real estate investors, they're trying to save money, okay? And they don't like paying up front for jobs they haven't done, So, you're not going to make a lot of money on with real estate investors or flippers, house flippers. You're not. But sometimes it's necessary. We all start out that way because we get experience. We get experience from them, and then we see how we get good at what we do, and it pays the bills. And while you're doing that, you're marketing to the homeowners, and this is where you make your money. Because the homeowners, they just want the job to be done great. Sometimes they don't mind spending a little bit more money, but as long as the job is done good. So yeah, that's number 3, focus on quality. Number 4, your banks. Now, when you're first starting out, if you don't open a corporation or an S Corp or anything like that, you're just a sole proprietor. And what happens when you're sole proprietor, you have to pay 15% of self-employment tax. Now, if you have a job right now, and you get a paycheck, what happens is that your employer pays about 7.5 of your taxes, and you pay the other 7.5 that they take away from your check, your taxes. Now, when you're a business owner and you're self-employed, you are the employee and the employer, so you're paying 15% of taxes at the end of the year. Now, there's nobody to tell you, hey, let me get this money before you spend it, okay? There's nobody to tell you that. So when you're getting these checks, you got to make sure that the profit you make, you take 15% of that profit and you put it in another bank account. Do that. Don't do what I did. I just started using the money right away, and I think the first year I owed like $6,000. No, not the first year. Maybe second year or something like that. I owed $6,000, and so you want to make sure that you, as soon as you get the money. Let's say you do a job for $5,000, you spend $2,000 in materials, that's $3,000 left. You calculate your overhead cost, whatever it is, that's another $1,000, and then you have $2,000 left. That's basically your net profit. Out of those $2,000, you take away 15%. So what is that? That's what the heck? That's $300, right? So take that $300, put it on the bank in a separate bank account that you can't touch. And then at the end of the year, you use that money to pay your taxes. Now, that's when you're first starting out. Now, number 5, taxes. Taxes are very, very important, okay? At the end of the year, make sure you do your taxes. Now, this is for the first year. Now, the second year, as you start getting more money, and if you start making, more than 100,000, then this is where you talk about opening an LLC or an S corp or whatever, and that's going to save you a lot on payroll taxes. But we'll leave that for another video. First, focus on opening your business. Another thing I forgot to mention. For banking, make sure you have a separate bank. Don't use your personal bank, okay? And the IRS does not like that. You can get in big trouble, and it's very confusing, okay? So make sure you have a separate business bank. Money goes in that business bank. Money comes out. What is left over is your profit, and you pay out of that profit, you're going to pay 15%. Taxes, and understand that there's going to be taxes to the federal government, state, local government, county. I mean, taxes are. That surprised me when opening a business, how many different taxes there are. So definitely speak to an accountant or a bookkeeper to kind of help you navigate this. But yeah, these are 5 things to kind of learn about opening a business. I'll make further videos, and then I'll talk more about my business and where we're at right now. And actually, in the next video, I'm going to talk to you about one of the things that I did that completely changed my business and made it a lot better. And it's a book that I read, and I'll talk about it in the next video. But just comment, subscribe. If you have any questions about business, feel free to comment on there, and I'll answer your questions as much as I can. Thank you.